Just now, China released a blockbuster signal on the safety issue of industrial blood. In the face of nearly 80% of copper concentrate import dependence, a proposal to improve the national strategic reserve system has been put on the table. This is not only to ensure the safety of the industrial chain, but also to be interpreted by the market as a positive response to changes in the global mineral pattern. Will a global copper price storm come at any time? We all know that copper is called the blood of industry, and even the oil of the new era. From smartphones to massive power grids, from new energy vehicles to semiconductor chips, copper is everywhere. It is the capillary of modern industrial civilization, and the absence of any link may lead to the paralysis of the entire system. However, China faces a fragile reality for such a lifeblood resource. We are the world's largest producer of refined copper, but our own copper reserves are relatively limited. This has led to an alarming situation. Nearly 80% of the raw materials we need to produce refined copper, that is, copper concentrate, need to be imported from abroad. Imagine the world's largest factory with 80% of its ration supply, but the switch is in someone else's hands. This is not only an economic issue, but also a sharp industrial security issue. Therefore, when the China Nonferrous Metals Industry Association proposed on the 3rd of February 2026 to improve the copper resource reserve system, especially to expand the scale of national strategic reserves and study the inclusion of copper concentrate in the scope of reserves, the world's attention was focused. Is this a precautionary defense or a potentially game-changing pawn in this global resource chess game? Today, let's take an in-depth look at the global changes caused by copper. Hello everyone, I am Huan Finance, a financial blogger who only knows how to talk about dry goods, and I am very happy that you watch my video. So, what specific details and deep meanings are hidden behind the proposal of this industry association? The core content of the concept proposed by the China Nonferrous Metals Industry Association has several levels. First, and most directly, it is recommended to expand the scale of strategic copper reserves at the national level. This is like the national granary, to hold more grain, which is the most basic security guarantee. Second, it mentioned exploring the establishment of a commercial reserve mechanism, such as through fiscal discounts, to support state-owned backbone enterprises to reserve copper resources on their own. This is equivalent to encouraging large households to also establish their own surplus grain reserves and form a multi-level security system. But if you think that's all there is to it, you're underestimating the far-reaching impact of this proposal. What could really be a game-changer and make international mining giants pay great attention to is a key point mentioned in the plan. Studying the inclusion of copper concentrate in the reserve. What is copper concentrate? To put it simply, it is copper ore dug out of the mine and preliminarily enriched and treated, which is the grain of the smelter. In the past, most of the national reserves were refined copper that had already been produced. Now, China's industry is exploring moving the defense line of reserves directly to the upstream of the industrial chain, the raw material side. Why is this move so important? Because it directly targets the core pain points of China's copper industry. In the past few decades, China has established the world's largest copper smelting capacity and is a well-deserved copper processing plant in the world. But the problem is that nearly 80% of the copper concentrate needed by our smelters is imported. This creates an awkward situation. Upstream international mining giants control mine output and pricing. Downstream, global customers in turn demand copper products at competitive prices. China's smelting enterprises are caught in the middle, and their profit margins are severely squeezed. This kind of extrusion is most intuitively reflected in the smelting and processing fee, TCRC. When the market is in good supply, TCRC rises and smelters have a better time. Conversely, when the source is tight, TCRC will plummet, and the smelters may even produce at a loss. In the past few years, TCRC has fallen to historic lows due to a number of factors, and many Chinese smelters are under tremendous pressure. Now, You can understand the power of the proposal to include copper concentrate in reserves. This is equivalent to suggesting that the national team go directly to the field and purchase raw grain on a global scale. This will not only provide stable raw material security for domestic smelters, but more importantly, it is expected to fundamentally enhance China's bargaining power and voice in upstream minerals as the world's largest buyer. What's more interesting is that while discussing the expansion of reserves, the association also emphasized another policy. It has decisively stopped more than 2 million tons of planned and under construction copper smelting projects and strictly controlled new production capacity. The signal of this combination is very clear. This is not only a simple hoarding suggestion, but also points to a profound industrial restructuring. Externally, through centralized procurement and reserve of copper concentrate, compete for global pricing power. Internally, through strict control of new production capacity, the industry will be promoted from the pursuit of large scale to the pursuit of strong efficiency and technology. Behind this series of proposals is China's well-thought-out triple strategic considerations. The first and most core consideration is the national security of the industrial chain. The nearly 80% dependence on copper concentrate imports that we have repeatedly mentioned is the sword of Damocles hanging over the head of China's manufacturing industry. The world's high-quality copper resources are highly concentrated in Chile and Peru, in South America, as well as in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, in Africa. Any turmoil in these areas could directly impact China's copper supply. Deeper concerns come from geopolitics. Today, as the game of global powers becomes increasingly fierce, strategic mineral resources have become a new key field. Therefore, this proposal to improve the copper reserve system is essentially a strategic discussion of de-risking. It is in line with the spirit of the implementation plan for the high-quality development of the copper industry 2025 to 2027, jointly issued by the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology and other departments, with the goal of improving the resilience and the safety level of the industrial chain and the supply chain. The second consideration is to hedge risks and improve game chips. In the current era of global macroeconomic turmoil, the value of real assets is being re-examined. Copper, as one of the world's most liquid and widely used commodities in industry, is increasingly showing quasi-financial attributes. Increasing the holdings of strategic physical reserves, such as copper, has similarities with the logic of increasing gold holdings. It can not only hedge against inflation risks, but also become a hard currency in extreme cases. When a country has huge physical reserves that affect supply and demand in the global market, its leverage in the international game increases significantly. The third consideration is to lay out in advance for the decisive future. If the first two considerations are biased towards defense, then the third consideration is full of offensive, meaning this future is the green energy revolution, represented by new infrastructure and carbon neutrality. This is a future where the demand for copper increases exponentially. It takes about 23 kilograms of copper to build a traditional fuel vehicle, while the copper consumption of a pure electric vehicle soars to 83 kilograms. The construction of photovoltaic power stations, wind power generation, and the supporting energy storage and transmission and transformation facilities is inseparable from massive copper materials. China has set itself an ambitious dual carbon goal, which means that the demand for copper in the future will be astronomical. Therefore, today's discussion of reserves can be seen as planning in advance for tomorrow's explosive demand. It is a forward-looking strategic vision to use its market advantages to lock in physical supply in advance before the world realizes the future value of copper. Asterisk Part 3 Global Showdown Escalation of the Silent Resource War between China and the United States. However, China's action did not happen in a vacuum. On the other side of the ocean, the United States has already begun its layout. A silent resource war around critical minerals has begun. Just as China is exploring strengthening its state-led reserve system, the United States has also launched its Critical Minerals Reserve Program. According to media reports, a proposal called the Project Vote is on the agenda, with an initial scale of $12 billion, aiming to establish a strategic reserve covering minerals such as lithium, cobalt, rare earths, and copper. Interestingly, the thinking of China and the United States on the reserve model reflects two different philosophies. China's model is more inclined to be state-led, directly ending through national reserves and large state-owned enterprises, and concentrating on doing big things. Its advantages are strong action and high efficiency, and it can accurately target the weak links of the industrial chain, such as copper concentrate, to reinforce, with the goal of achieving control of the physical supply chain. The U.S. model is more like a public-private partnership, financial market-oriented operation. It plans to use loans and private capital from the Export-Import Bank of the United States and may entrust professional commodity traders with global procurement and management. The advantage of this model is that it takes advantage of Wall Street's financial power and global trade network, and the model is more flexible and can take advantage of market fluctuations to optimize costs. Behind these two models is the direct collision between China and the United States on the global resource map. The main battlefield of this game is in those countries rich in copper mines. In the past, we have seen Chinese companies actively deploy globally. And now, we may see that giants backed by different capitals will compete more fiercely in these places. This is no longer a simple business competition, but a deep, strategic card battle between two of the world's top players for industrial dominance for decades to come. So, what kind of impact will this fairy fight have on the market? The first to bear the brunt is the shock of global copper prices. When a buyer of such a large volume releases a signal of long-term, large-scale strategic procurement, it is equivalent to telling the market that copper in the future will only become more and more scarce. Copper reserves in the included countries will disappear from the circulation market, which may cause structural shortages on the supply side. The China Nonferrous Metals Industry Association also predicts that copper prices may continue to fluctuate at a high level. Secondly, it is a reshuffle of the global industrial chain. For upstream mining companies, this is undoubtedly a good thing. For China's leading smelting companies, if their raw material safety is guaranteed, profit margins are expected to be repaired. But for the downstream of the industrial chain, the impact is huge. All copper companies, such as home appliances, construction, automobiles, and power equipment will face the pressure of rising costs. This cost transmission may drive industry consolidation and upgrading. Finally, what does this mean for us ordinary investors? This is not just abstract geopolitics, but also a clear investment signal to the market. This resource revaluation driven by national strategy may start a long-term commodity cycle. For friends who pay attention to investment, some areas deserve great attention, such as global copper mining companies that directly benefit from them and commodity funds that are highly correlated with copper prices. Of course, any investment is accompanied by risks, and macroeconomic fluctuations and the actual implementation effect of policies are variables that need to be vigilant. To sum up, the recent proposal to expand copper reserves put forward by the China Nonferrous Metals Industry Association is by no means a whim. It is a set of precise and powerful combinations discussed based on multiple strategic considerations, such as ensuring the security of the industrial chain, hedging geopolitical risks, and laying out the future green revolution. It marks a fundamental change in the development logic of China's copper industry and officially pushes the competition between China and the United States to a new height in the field of global key resources. In this game of great power resources, who do you think will have the last laugh? Will copper price fluctuations be a major attraction in the market in 2026? Feel free to share your views in the comments area. If you find this issue valuable to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my channel. See you next time.